You know what's cooler than Across the Spider-Verse being released pretty soon? Making stuff with Adobe Illustrator. So how about we combine those two things with this tutorial? We're in Adobe Illustrator right now, and I'm going to design a little button that has like a Spider-Man logo or a Spider-Man pattern on it, like a little merch button that could go on your backpack or on your jacket or whatever. So in Illustrator, you can use like a print preset, and I'm making this be relatively small just for a small button, 2" by 2". So because it is a print preset, CMYK colors, a high raster effect, so it looks nice when it's printed out even though it'll be small. And then I'll click create. And here we are into our project. The first thing, just a little bit of setup. We want to change our layers here, so I am going to add a second layer, and the background layer I'm going to call Spidey Design, and I'll change the layer 2 name to button pattern, and then I'm going to select button pattern because that's the one that I want to select first. Then I'll go over here to properties, then go over and select a ellipse tool, draw a circle for the outside of the button, of the outside of the paper of the button, and the size of this is going to be 1.313 by 1.313. That's just the size of my button press that I have. If you have a different button press, then you'll use a different size on yours. Alright, once we have that done, double check that the fill is transparent, and then the stroke is just a solid black line is good. Then I'm going to hold down Alt and click and drag to make a copy of that circle, but this circle is going to be smaller. It's going to be 0.875 by 0.875, and I'll center this one in the middle of the screen too. Might not be a bad idea for this one to have just a different style to the stroke, so I'm gonna have it be a dashed line. So this here would be like my little template that I'm gonna follow for my button. It wraps paper around the outside of the button. This will be actually what we see on the button, this dotted line, so I want to make sure all my main design elements are well within that dashed circle. And then the button press wraps this paper around the metal backing with the plastic slip, and my background color or any kind of pattern elements probably wants to extend just to the back of this, or maybe even a little bit further, just to make sure that there's no blank white awkward areas around the outside of my button on the border or anything like that. Once that's done, then going over here to the layers, and I'm just going to lock this layer on here so I don't accidentally select something or accidentally delete it. It's just right there for me. And then I will select my Spidey design layer, which is underneath it, so I can work on the Spider-Man design. We'll go up here to our shapes tool and our polygon tool, and I'll just click and drag to create a polygon on here, and I don't want it to be dashed, so go over to stroke and unclick dashed line to make that solid. I also might make the actual thickness of the line a little bit narrower, so down from 1 point to 0.5 points looks nice. I want there to be more sides to this, because it'll be like a spider web. So then the next thing would be to click and drag this little diamond on the side of the selection handle, and if you click and drag one way, it takes away lines. If you click and drag the other way, it increases lines. So I'm adding to a total of 9 total lines on my shape. Alright, and then I want to have this be a little bit bigger than the circle, I think. I think that'll work well for that. So once that's there, then I will center that on the page, and then I don't want those sides to be perfectly straight. So with that shape selected, I can go back up here to Effect, and then go to Distort and Transform, and then select Pucker and Bloat. -5 probably is going to work well on this, just to pull in the sides a little bit. You can always change it later if you want to, so I'll try -5, and I do think that'll work pretty nicely right there. Once that is done, then I will make a copy of this outer web shape. Just alt click and drag, and then this one I will shrink down quite a bit, and then this one here I will bring it down into the center of this design. And there are a couple kind of weird things going on with the line on there. So I might make it just a little bit bigger. And then center it in the middle. That looks better. Okay, so that's done. We want to make multiple webs from this point down to this point. So then if I select both of these and then go to Object and Blend, then go to Blend Options. For the spacing, I want to click on the little drop down menu and select Specified Steps. So I'll click on that, and for the number I'm going to go with 7. And if it's not enough, I can always undo it and then rechange that before I go on. So I'll click OK, and then these are both selected. Then go back up to Object one more time and go to Blend and then Make. And yeah, I do think that looks pretty good right there. So you can start to see this Spider-Man pattern taking place on here now. But we need to have the lines that go from the center out around the outside. So for that, I can use like my pen tool. Can go in the very center of this design and click, and then just go up here to the top. And then if I hold down Alt and click out here, then it'll keep it from still staying attached to my pen tool on there. So this line is right here, and I do have 9 sides, so I could redraw that 9 times, but I don't really want to. So what I am actually going to do is I'm going to press R on the keyboard, which selects, or you could go to your rotate tool too, but the R shortcut will activate that for you, and that's your rotation tool. So then what I will do is I will zoom in on here a little bit and then hold down the Alt button, and then I'm going to click just on the very end of that line down there. And then this rotate window is going to come open here, and what I will do here is I will say I want this to be 360 divided by 9. Okay, so if I put the formula in there, then it'll let me know where that's supposed to rotate to, and then I want to make sure that I click copy. I want to click copy first. Alright, and then after that, then I can go Control D, and I can do that all the way around the outside of this shape. Alright, so a few of these, when you're done, they may not line up just perfectly, so you can adjust those by clicking the edges of them. And that might just happen if the bottom one and the outer one weren't, if one of those two wasn't perfectly centered, you know, or anything like that. Something could have kept those from aligning, but at least we have all these lines. Around the outside. Next step that we want to do is add a little color to this. So for this, I will just make a rectangle tool. Doesn't matter if it has a stroke in it or not, but I am going to fill it with red. And then if I right click on it with my black arrow tool here, then I can find where it says arrange and send to back. Alright, and then you can see where this is starting to take place now, starting to look like a Spider-Man design now. Last thing that we'll need for the design itself is just the eyes. So let's go over here to the ellipse tool, draw an ellipse. We'll fill this in with white. We'll change the stroke maybe to 3. Will probably be fine. And there's a little handle here on the edge of this circle selection window. If I click and drag that to the left, I can make a half circle. It's kind of hard to get it to be perfectly to 180 when you click and drag it on there. So you can go up here to properties and transform, and then there's your little pie start angle. I can click in there and go 180 and then make it exactly 180 degrees. So I will create that, and then I'm going to rotate this around at an angle like so, however you want it to look. And then after that, just do a copy of that, and then we can go up to object and then transform and reflect. And if we reflect it vertically 90 degrees, then it's exactly where it should be. So then the next thing to do is just to kind of center it in there as best as we can. The way that I do this is if I select both of these on here, you know, I can go vertical align top and make sure that they're both aligned that way. And then what I'll do with them both selected is I will go to group, right click and go to group, and then I will center it horizontally just to make sure they're lined in that way. And you can see these eyes are still well within that dotted line on there, so I won't have any of that being cropped off when I'm wrapping it around that button. And that looks pretty good. The last thing that you would do would just be go back to your layers and unlock your button pattern, and then we would just select this dotted circle because we don't need that anymore, and delete that out of there. And then I will leave this circle right here, so when I print this out on a sheet of paper, if I have a sheet of paper with a bunch of these aligned on it, then what I would do when I'm ready to put this into the button press, I would just cut around with actual physical scissors, not Illustrator tools, but on the piece of paper I would cut around this outside portion of the um, design there, and then I have my Spider-Man design fit inside that circle of the button, and it's gonna look good all the way around, all the way to the edge of the button itself. So there you have it. Pretty cool design, pretty easy to do. Um, and you know, with the whole thing with Across the Spider-Verse, there's all the Spider-Man variants. You know, so if you wanted to, and you didn't want to do just regular Peter Parker Spider-Man, maybe you want Miles Morales. So you could go over here to fill, and you can change, you know, the colors there, and you can select the eyes and change the color of the stroke to be like a darker red, and do something like that also. So you can, or if you wanted to use white and pink and purple for Gwen Stacy, or however you want that to be, you can kind of make your own Spider-Man variant buttons and collect them and give them to your friends, and all that kind of stuff, or wear them with pride to the release of the movie here in the next month or so, a little more. I appreciate you watching the tutorial. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next video.